Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, September 11th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Pour one out, 9/11. This podcast covers the national champions. And we're ranked number one again. And it's good to be king. Speaking of which, welcome everyone to Garrick Hodge, as you see him on the vibe there. It is not the dean going into a time machine button style. And you've got the grand Poobah, Mark Porter, down there. We are going to let Garrick meet the people today. As you know, Garrick will be coming on to help out Bill for a couple months and then take over as we expand and Bill heads off into retirement. We are not losing Bill to another site or another entity. We are losing him to the Westerville Little League. He is going to coach his grandchildren. However, Ohio State will still recruit, which is good, and we'll still be here to follow it. So for Garrick today, we're gonna start off and let him hit the general points because, as you well know, the questions that are asked to recruiting guys tend to be one and the same despite all the changes. So Garrick, get us started with this. How will the class of 2026 end up for Ohio State? Bill, we used to have a running joke that who's the next guy to commit was always the question. It's not as easy to do anymore, but how do you see it finishing out 2026? How many dudes and who could it be?
Well, if you ask Ryan Day on Tuesday, he said he's pretty optimistic that they're going to finish strong. And will they? I mean, I tend to give them the benefit of the doubt from everything I've seen. I think the number's at 21 right now, and I think they'll probably take another 4. What positions they'll target, I would guess probably another offensive line. We're going to talk to a candidate or talk about a candidate about that. Another defensive back, another defensive line. And I think maybe we kind of a wild card in there, kind of what position can they maybe backfill, what's the highest quality guy they can take, and then maybe kind of go from there. But in terms of who could be the next commit, I would think 2026 offensive lineman Landry Breed, the recent offer for Mentor, is visiting this week, unofficial visit. But, yeah, it's a current North Carolina State commit, a lot of intrigue going around there. From what I understand, 6'5", 280, and I'm sure Mark can talk more about his on-field capabilities. But yeah, I would guess Landry Breed, but he's kind of in an interesting position right now because North Carolina State very much values him, and they're making him a priority in their class. And as we know, in this current era, that means that there's a lot of financial incentive there. But he's an Ohio kid; he loves Ohio State. And I think the Buckeyes have a real shot with him. We'll see how this visit goes. But, yeah, I'm supposed to visit this week. And so if you ask me who could be the next to commit, my money would be on him for right now.
Mark, let's talk Landry Breed for a minute. What you know about him as a player and what you've heard about him in terms of his interest for Ohio State. I think Garrick brings up the key point there. We don't see, and you know this, we don't see a lot of North Carolina State as our primary opponent. But things have changed. I mean, there are schools, like Garrick said, that are targeting guys they think they can get by making him the gold standard in one class and maybe not the other. Your thoughts on Landry, the player, and then what you've heard about his chances of actually being a Buckeye?
Yeah, you guys accurately described it. North Carolina State doesn't recruit Ohio. In fact, I don't remember them taking a player Ohio in really my recent memory. I have a friend down the staff down there. Landry being their crown jewel, that's what's keeping him committed right now. You know, that's the word out of Mentor. But, you know, he's going to be on campus with Ohio State this weekend. And I'm sure just like Jameer Perez, you know, they'll let the NIL things shake out and there's time to discuss that. That process is the part we can't put our finger on as analysts yet. You know, we don't know if there'll be a donor that reads this article and says, you know what? I really think that Landry Breed, we need him. Maybe I should kick in a little extra so we can get him. And that's kind of the state of the affairs. Or are we already maxed out on our credit card for this year where we couldn't charge one more thing on one more credit card or bring in one more player? And I put it like that because I think people can identify with that. Like if my wife sees me put one more set of Pro Vs on a golf card, you know, she's going to have a heart failure on me. So, you know, or – you know, so that's where this is in recruiting. And Landry as a person, we liked him last year. I think I can go back to a podcast. I would love to go back to the podcast where I first started talking about Mason, Wilt, Landry Breed, because I remember saying, we're talking about the big three. It was Guthrie and Maxwell Riley and the kid at Miami Trace. I said, no, it's the big four. Put Landry into that conversation. And, he never quite made it over the hump. And I think there was a point in time this summer, and I don't know if this is that accurate way to say it, where Landry realized, you know what, the Buckeyes aren't coming, and I better get serious about my recruitment and maybe not, pin my hopes that – and I think that's a shame because he was right there on the cusp of it. So this is a nice story for him to go. You know what? I love, just like Jake Cook, when guys earn it. There's something about that, not being anointed as a sophomore, the next coming of the savior, to a guy that's been told, no, you're not there yet. And when they get there, and you saw Jake Cook have a, stripe removed. And of course, he's from Westerville last year. He was our story that we followed. Is he, isn't he? How many camps did he go to do it? So I genuinely enjoy when guys like this do it. I am going to go try to see Landry tomorrow night. So we'll spoiler alert on that. But he has a matchup against North Royalton. I don't know what I'm going to do in the second half. I wanted to see Maxwell Riley at Avon Lake, but it appears he's going to take the week off. He's got a little bumper bruise, nothing serious. And I don't think they're going to miss him during the Midview game. So I don't know if I would have been the best week to see him. So we'll get you an in-depth, up-to-the-minute report. Garrick said he's 6'5". I don't remember Landry as being 6'5".
He's listed at 6'5".
Yes. Now, that's why I have to go, because you don't see a kid for 6 months, 8 months, a year at this time. I make a living based on seeing kids yearly because they do get that extra inch or two. So I'll be able to clue you in as, you know what? It was probably that extra inch or two that got him offered, or it was his play on the field and his consistency or whatever it may be that brought in this offer. So look for more information. Look for a Landry Breed week out of us. And, hats off to him for being the subject this week.
Yeah. Garrick will talk to him after he visits this weekend, and then Mark will have the video coming up. So there's no point in really throwing the video up now from last season. Last North Carolina State offensive lineman, I could be wrong on this. It might be Joe Tooney, who from Alter, who has had a tremendous career. I mean, multiple beach houses for the Tooney, so good for him. Speaking of multiple beach houses, if things work out for Brady Edmonds when he comes to play quarterback at Ohio State, he is next in line it's a nice looking line too. Tavian St. Clair, and then Brady coming after that, and Luke Fahey is in there as well. Garrick, you had the chance to talk to Brady and kind of get to know him a little bit. He's been around. His family's been here. Your thoughts on Brady, just as kind of personality-wise, since you got to meet him? We all know he's kind of like your Justin Herbert reincarnated, if best-case scenario. Your thoughts on him as a guy? Does he recruit for the class? We've seen a lot of quarterbacks come through here. How would you compare Brady to the rest?
It's tough to put a finger on a comparison, but I can tell you that he's a really impressive young man. Talked with him earlier this week. He wanted to visit for the Texas game, of course. I mean, who wouldn't want to visit for a game like that, right? But he had a schedule conflict. He couldn't make it, but he still wanted to make it to Ohio State early in the season. So he shifted some things around and made it for the game against Grambling State, right? And he's talking about his itinerary. He lands in Columbus at 6:40 on Friday. And normally you would go to the hotel, you check in, put your feet up, and get ready for the game day visit the next day, right? No, not Brady. He goes all the way to St. Ed's, and he wants to watch fellow commit Jir Brown because it means a lot to him to grow that relationship. The two commits in the class right now, and they're already fostering it. They've talked a lot this summer. They check in with each other every few weeks, and they made it just in time for the second half, and Brady caught up with him after the game. And I just found that really interesting. I was like, why make it a point to go see him when you know you're probably not going to make it on time for kickoff? And he's like, hey, man, I know that we're two guys that we're not playing games. We know where we want to go, and we're going to be foundations of this class. That means a lot to me, and I wanted to go support my future teammate. And that really kind of resonated with me, especially in this current era where a lot of people think it's just about the money. This guy, even though he's a California kid, really wants to be a Buckeye. His grandfather was an Ohio State fan, really meant a lot to him. He said he knew he wanted to go to Ohio State the second he got the offer. It was pretty much written in stone. But no, I mean, yeah, it's wonderful that he has the size, he has the arm. I mean, he can't think about this, guys. He is a California kid. So while Tavian, he's an hour down the road from Bellefontaine, comes to every camp, comes to every game, great ambassador for the class. He has a pretty short journey to get to Columbus, right? Sure. Brady is halfway across the country, and in June he comes across and makes it a point to stay in Columbus for an entire week so he can camp with the Buckeyes for 4 camps and just get personal feedback from Ryan Day, from Billy Fessler, all those guys. And this is a guy that really wants to be in the class, and we'll talk about it in a second, but, they might do their due diligence and take a second quarterback in the 2027 class, and Brady's aware of that. And I asked him, would that impact your standing with Ohio State? And he's like, no, man, I'm going to have to compete anyway. I'm not scared of competition, and I know where I want to be, and I want to be here. And I just thought that, yes, Mike, we just did. But, I asked him, because they hosted a lot of other 2027 QBs, sure, and some in the summer class, and some of them were at the same camps that Brady was there. And he's been nothing but a consummate pro about it. He wants Ohio State to do well, and this is where he really wants to be. I never try to be surprised, if there is a last-second flip for whatever reason. But if Brady doesn't go to Ohio State, I will be shocked based off everything he says. He says all the right things and is a consummate pro, even when he hasn't turned 18 yet.
By the way, the distance between where Brady Edmonds landed and St. Ed's is further than the distance between Tavian St. Clair and Ohio State. So in terms of being willing to travel, that's very, very impressive. And by the way, not a bad way to start your class with Justin Herbert and then, a Stephon Diggs prototype, or even better. All right, let's talk about Mason Wilt. Mark, the floor is going to be yours here. Mason Wilt is an offensive lineman from just over the border. For those of you who don't know, St. Clairsville is basically in Morgantown, West Virginia. Anyone who's no.
It's right on the kind of by the river, by the Ohio River. It's in Ohio. Morgantown. Okay, but yeah,
you're right, but it's very close to West Virginia.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, stone's throw. Just like Steubenville. Yeah. There's a definitely a West Virginia flavor when you go down there. If you like 4-wheeling and hitting the hills and stuff like that, that is your homeland.
But I'm saying for an Ohio town, that's one of those border towns where half the people like West Virginia and half like Ohio State. So, Mark, tell us about him, how you found him, what you think of St. Clairsville, and just the whole Mason Wilt experience. Then we'll throw the video up here for a taste.
Yeah, and I want to remind us. Let's talk about Carter Kessler after this, because I was ready to throw up his tape. And I didn't know which one we were doing first, but let's go with Mason Wilt. Mason was a kid that I went up to a T3 indoor workout up in Avon, run by Dale Roddick a couple of years ago when he was a freshman, and they were there with no pads on. And he played like he had pads on. He was not afraid to stick his chest in there, shoulder in there against seniors. And I came back and I told Bill, I said, this kid is big time. Bill put him in his rankings. Kid had no offers. And last year about this time, we were at the Western Michigan game versus Ohio State, and he was there. No offers. And it was one of those things where, am I wrong? Did I look at a kid in shorts one day as a freshman and get a little too excited? And I think Bill might have actually moved him out of his top 10 or top 5 of that freshman class, just like, hey, Mark, he's got no offers. Well, lo and behold, he has his offer from Ohio State. So I didn't get a chance to see him last year. This year I got a chance to see him. I went down to Beaver Local. He was only in 10 plays the week before. That's how dominating they were. I got to this game, and I want to say shout out to the hospitality down at Beaver Local. They were more than nice. I mean, they watch this podcast, guys. I couldn't get through the parking lot without them noticing a Bucknut was there. And you know what? It was by all accounts packed. It was supposed to be a great game. It was a great game last year. And by halftime, you can pull the video up now. By halftime, it was pretty much over. But Mason's one of those guys that he doesn't need more than a half to show you what he's going to show you. He's listed at 295 pounds, and I've said it a couple times. He doesn't look 295. When you're 295 with a pretty flat belly and you have that linear long look to you, which is that tackle body look, he looks great. And you can see him there running by. I mean, that belly's not hanging over his pants for 295. Now, Beaver Local doesn't have a college prospect.
I was going to say.
He throws kids around, and when he gets those meat hooks on you, and I'm sorry to call them meat hooks, these kids aren't going anywhere. I mean, he really – I put that clip on so you could see his feet. He just – I mean, that's like a DB trying to run by him. Very physical. I think he's an old school type, and I know that's a commonly used phrase. A punch there. I mean, that's a heck of a punch. And I know that kid wasn't probably more than 220 pounds. And
easily.
There's some overhead film of him here. But, boy.
You got to pay for that.
Yeah, you got to pay for the rest. But talk about an inside mauler who you could put in a phone booth, and he would grind you out of that phone booth with, doesn't need much of a running start to get his power base going. I think he's a street fighter. If I'm going into an alley and I got to take on a gang, I'm bringing Mason with me. I want him as a win. That's the type of mentality you kind of get from him. And I could tell he wanted to do well for me. And I mean, I'm sure his team or whatever, but okay, you came down to see me play. I really want to put on a show and give you something to show the Bucknutters. And, I don't know. I'm sure Garrick will get into it where he's going to go or where he's leaning, but it sounds like the Buckeyes are in pretty good shape with this one.
I'll tell you what, if you look at the front page of this podcast, he also has great hair. Like every other kid his age now, got the salad up there, and they just go nuts with it. I don't know what's going on with kids these days. You should see my youngest. It looks like he's trying to grow produce up there, but digression. All right, let's go over guys who are visiting this weekend. I will give you the name, and Garrick will kind of tell you a little bit about him, and then Mark, if you know anything about him, you can just shoot off the hip there. Let's talk about 2026. 2026. Keep in mind, people change. There are guys who were not targets coming into this season that, will grow because they're not adults yet. And they will go from not a prospect to a big-time prospect in a matter of months. Let's talk about 2026 Shelby Edge, Carter Kessler. Like I said, Garrick, introduce us to him, and then Mark, take it from there.
Yeah, Carter's now keep in mind this is listed, of course, but 6'5", 235-pound edge rusher from Shelby, Ohio. He's got 2 current Division I offers right now, West Virginia and Memphis. So kind of a guy that Ohio State really wants to take a look at, check the boxes, if you were. It's listed 6'5", 235. That's probably going to be the first thing they look at when he steps on campus this weekend. Okay, is he 6'5", 235 pounds is the size? Okay, check, right? And then if he meets that requirement, then the relationship will continue from there. But like I said, they're probably taking 4 more players, somewhere around that number in this class. And, with the scholarships going from 85 to 90, they might have more room for developmental type guys. And this is exactly the kind of player I think this would be, someone that fits the traits, plays tight end too in high school, plays both ways, defensive end and tight end, and could really be maybe some guy that they turn into something pretty impressive down the road. But Mark, I'm preaching to the choir here, but first 3 games of senior film is pretty much your standard. All right, we got enough of a sample size. Let's see how a guy has moved from the year to the next. And, I mean, so far, they like what they've seen from Carter enough to invite him on an unofficial visit to this weekend. Where it goes from there, we'll have to see. But it's certainly one guy to keep an eye on, and probably the most intriguing visitor considering, 2026, it's as close to signing day as you're going to get. So things could move pretty quickly here if they like what they see.
And Mark, keep in mind, this is the OU game. And even though it's at night, you're not going to get the star-studded cast you get from a Texas or a Penn State game. So good chance for Carter to get some real love this weekend. It's kind of a very clever time to bring him in. maybe make him more apple of the eye. Your thoughts on Carter as a prospect, and when you
Yeah.
first saw him, how he's developed, blah blah.
Throw up the video.
Okay.
This smells like BP Miller from last year. That Bog Pagan Miller over in Ontario. This is that same conference, Central Ohio. His coach alerted me about him last year, and I saw him work out. And Garrick nailed it. If he's 6'5", 235, when you put on this tape, I put on it and I did not expect much. I'm like, okay, he's probably a small school guy. When he runs down the middle here at tight end, you see his speed. It's against small school, but that kind of reminded me of Jordan Karhoff, the tight end at the Sales they just offered. Now, these defensive clips, if he's 6'5", 235, this is going to remind you of, and be careful when I say these names, C.J. Hicks, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, they all have this same body type. Now, just because this body type is at Shelby doesn't mean that it can't be great. I mean, he's running around and doing similar things. So you get this vibe that, okay, let's call him a JV Sonny Styles or a JV CJ Hicks, where he's not quite there, didn't have quite the competition of a Pickerington or a Glenville. But could he develop? I wouldn't be betting against this. This is the type of rocks that Ohio State flips over every year, where they're doing their homework on everybody. And you know what? I'd be watching more tape on this kid, and I wouldn't be shocked. I circle this as better than Mark Porter would have originally thought it. I didn't think we'd find another scholarship offered guy in 2026, especially one that you really don't know about. But hats off to these guys. I think I said a couple of weeks ago, usually it takes to the playoffs, for them to pop an offer on that senior that, rose to the top, or the cream rose. Very good candidate, Carter Kessler. We're really impressed.
Yeah, that's funny you said BP Miller, because that's the first thing I was thinking of. Like, if you're going to get a developmental prospect when they've proven they can produce defensive ends and wide receivers at a high level, that's where you want to go. All right.
Rashad Berry's the other player he kind of looks like.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that outside linebacker tweener was, and so I'm trying to give you some molds to put him. I mean, he has a body style. Joshua Perry, Malik Harrison. This body style is a valuable body style. And I'm sorry to keep going here, we just had a message board post where people are upset that we didn't take Chaz Coleman or get in on him fast enough. The Penn State defensive end from Warren Harding we offered late last year. Chaz Coleman was the same size. Chaz was a little more explosive than this, doing it Warren Harding. It was a little more of a no-brainer, but not different ballparks, I would say. Not totally different ballparks.
That is good stuff, dude. That is good. So you got two major in-state visitors this weekend with Breed and Mr. Kessler. So we will report on that. Let's talk about some guys from outside the area. Let's go quickly through these. 2027 offensive tackle, Garrett Cole Ryder.
Yeah, Cole Ryder's a listed 6'7", 295-pound offensive tackle in the 2027 class from Germantown, Wisconsin. The northern Illinois area. Went to Wisconsin a lot. Can't say I've ever been to Germantown, but this kind of gives me Carson Hinsman deja vu. In fact, that the biggest competition for this guy would be with the Badgers. I mean, obviously, like Carson, he probably grew up rooting for the Badgers, so they're a huge institution in that state. Really interesting prospect too. Top 200 player, so a guy that already has an Ohio State offer. So I think this could be an interesting visit here.
Another 2027 offensive lineman, Carter Jones.
Carter Jones is 6'5.5", 291 pounds from Virginia, 2027. And, like Cole before him, another offensive tackle coming in, truly sized like an offensive tackle, has an offer from whatever Division I program you name it, Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, he has it. Good to get him in on campus, foster that relationship. We'll see where it's at in a few months.
2027 defensive end, Tommy, I think it's Reardon from Illinois.
So quick little subtext here. Have either of you guys seen the movie Warrior? It was kind of this really good, with Tommy Reardon was the name of the one of the main characters in that movie. So when I heard that Tommy Reardon was coming in, I kind of did a double take, like, wait, who? But
It'll be tough.
anyway.
It'll be tough.
Anyway, Tommy Reardon does not have an Ohio State offer yet, but could receive one in the future. He's a 3-star edge, 6'4", 240, 2027 prospect out of Hinsdale, Illinois. And, other schools that have offered him include Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, and then a lot of MAC schools. But, yeah, I'm kind of intrigued to see where things go with Tommy, and could be a guy worth monitoring in the future.
This guy's interesting. 2020 safety, Poobah Mawala from California, and has a certain relationship with a player on the roster who made quite an impression this weekend and recovered a fumble and is one of his first plays ever, Epi Citinelli. So your thoughts on Poobah Mawala, 2028?
Yeah, he's in the early 247 Sports Top 100, so obviously a guy that a lot of people are going to keep an eye on in that class. Holds a ton of prestigious offers, but hasn't had one from Ohio State yet. Maybe that changes this weekend. We'll have to see. But like you said, Dan, he is the cousin of Epi, so pretty impressive Epi. But yeah, pretty impressive.
We won't try the last name when your last name is. Go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty cool that he gets to come see his cousin play and get to be recruited himself. But I'm definitely keeping an eye on him for sure as one of the fast risers in 2028. But before we move on, I also didn't want to make sure we forgot top 100 guy in the 2027 class, defensive tackle, 6'4", 300 pounds, Nate Kamba, who is from Charlotte, North Carolina. He confirmed with me last night that he is indeed coming to this game. There was some speculation, would he come, would he not? But he says that the plan is for him as of right now to make it. And I think he's one of the top emerging priorities for Ohio State in the 2027 class. And I mean, just based on the size alone, 6'4", 300 pounds, really intrigues me a lot. He camped with Ohio State earlier this summer, really impressed me. So he's another guy that I'm kind of excited to see where this visit goes.
Cannot get enough defensive tackle prospects in the mix, especially because those guys and the offensive and defensive linemen, keep in mind, are growing. So you don't get married to the size. All right, let's see if there's any questions here. There was some question about the Armstrongs. And wouldn't you know, we have an inside source on the Armstrongs who may or may not had you – the idea of cooking for your kids is one thing. Then the idea of cooking for your kids if they're offensive lineman twins from that's a heavy bill there. But here's the report. First snap was a pancake for Deontay. 4 knockdowns and a touchdown for the running back, rated out gold. Both twins progressing well, especially over this fall camp. The Armstrongs will be contributors here, and we will all be happy. They were a little behind when they got started, and all words are good. Mark, you've heard the same?
Yeah, I was looking at the snap count, so it was nice to see Deontay get in there. We'll see if his brother gets in later in the year in some of these type games. But, I was looking at those snap counts. I think there was an article that had all of them in there, and you're trying to get a feel for how these guys are getting a series. And sometimes the snap counts can be leading. Sometimes you're in there for a long drive. Sometimes you get a 3 and out. On defense, you want 3 and out. So if your snap count's low, that's good. But you're kind of looking into that stuff to see who the staff is giving the first batters up. Let's see it. The guys that like saying you grade out gold during camp. Let's get that guy in a game and see what he does when the lights are shining. So look for that again this week. Let's see who gets in at the end of the game and that third and fourth. To me, sometimes that third and fourth quarter is almost as interesting as the start of the game. It keeps me tuned in.
Mika, got to cook you up here. Mark, either one of you guys can take this. Parker Krim, Elijah Durham-Smith, and Malachi Irving get second looks. Marcus, this feels like your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
Hold on a sec. Can you introduce them to us slightly?
Yeah, that was the quick answer, and now I'll go in depth. Parker Krim is from over in Elida, which is Northwest Ohio. He was at a big conference combine there, and he stole the show at that combine. He was probably the best player over there, and he had an Iowa State offer and a few other things. Much like the player we just watched, he's probably a JV version of some of the guys we're taking. Could do it. May develop somewhere else, but he's a guy that you get back on a second go around. I think the 2 defensive ends at Pickerington North, Elijah Durham-Smith and Malachi Irving, they are explosive. They're going to be dominating this year for Pickerington. I just don't know if they had the size. They were at the Ohio State camp and worked out, but I don't know if they're going to be Ohio State guys either. I think that bar for that defensive end position at Ohio State's pretty tough. Even this Carter Kessler they're taking a look at is not much different than, Durham or Irving, just different background.
There you go. All right. Let's see if we got a couple more questions in here. All right, let's just go to this. Mark, you teased us a little bit, but where will you be headed this weekend?
There is a huge game in Cleveland, St. Ed's and Glenville. So tempting.
Whoa.
Yeah.
There'll be NFL scouts at that game.
Yeah. So, and there may be a chance I show up there. We're going to leave that up because I don't think I might be able to get there at halftime from where I'm at. I'm going to see how the Landry game goes. But that's the show. And that would be what I would like to see. But Landry Breed this week is kind of taken over, and we kind of got to get our eyeballs on him and give Bucknutters what they deserve, cutting edge information on the latest prospects offered in Ohio. And that's kind of – so Cleveland area, like I said, Maxwell Riley, I wanted to see him earlier in the year. The reason I wouldn't go see Glenville or St. Ed's now is simply because I want to eat a filet during the playoffs. I don't want to be stuck with just, fast food for those last couple of weeks. And if I see him now, I usually don't get to see a team twice because I'm trying to see a lot of people. It's like a lot of people to see, not enough time to do it. So that's really my debate. So if I see him now, I got to find another filet for the playoffs.
Let me explain that a little bit. Mark's trying to see as many different prospects at least once on film. So the goal is to spread that out over all weeks. Of course, we could just start out by camping them at some Catholic school in Cleveland.
I might as well coach at Glenville and just go to every game.
Look,
I mean, you could do that. That's how good they are, or St. Ed's, and just go for that ride with a Buckeye all season. I mean, that's kind of how Gary House-2 rolled. I mean, he really embedded himself with Glenville, and he gave you a couple rides right through the playoffs and, the weekly in and outs of the Buckeye guys. It was really neat.
So ask and you shall receive. If you want to produce, first of all, I think it's easier to buy food for them than playing the genetic lottery and getting two twins in your family to play at Ohio State. But $2,000 a month and heavy carbs, vegetable. I'm sure they got a balanced diet, but they look good out there, man. One thing about the Armstrongs, when you do see them out there, they're going to be first off the bus. Go ahead, Mark.
As I say, $2,000 a month. That sounds like filet during the regular season.
Hey,
not just for special occasions. Ooh.
In the NIL era, that stuff pays off. It's a worthy investment. More carbs. All right. Garrick, much like Brady Edmonds, you'll be chasing an Ohio receiver around the state.
Well, unlike Mark, I'm impatient. I want my filet now, and I want it this week. So I'm going to Dayton to see Jir Brown. Wayne plays Springboro this week. So honestly, it doesn't really matter who they play because Jameer's a walking highlight no matter where he goes.
No doubt.
One quick thing about Jir, I was at the camp when he got his offer, and my initial thought was, I really see the vision here. And then a year later, I was at the Under Armour camp in May, just a couple months ago, and I was like, this guy's the freaking best receiver in the country, or if not really close to it. So I'm really excited. I've seen him at a lot of camps, and basically anytime he's on the field, he just wows you. And, I mean, it's going to be a really good thing for our highlight package that I'm going to see Jir Brown this week because the guy doesn't disappoint.
He is about the most guaranteed highlight you can get in a high school game because, one, he's going to get it a ton, and two, there's no project with Jir Brown. He's producing right now. If you'd have seen him run track in the spring, he literally rope-a-dope the entire field. He didn't win any of the prelims, and then he won the final, which is just wise beyond his years. Mark, your thoughts on Jir? You've seen him.
Yeah, and that's what I'd say.
Mark, you've seen him this year, so I want to make that clear.
I came out of summer starving, so I had a filet week one to hold me off to the playoffs. I've said this before. He never, doesn't impress. He runs and digs so hard that the turf balls on the field come off of his feet different than any other player I've seen. It's like the carpet underneath him needs to be kind of pushed back into place after he runs on it. I mean, he digs. I mean, the power in his legs is definitely different. I don't know if you'll see that as a scout. I watch a lot of kids come out of the blocks. I watch a lot of kids catch the ball and hit that fifth gear. This sucker puts his feet into the ground, and I don't know if he has spikes like dig deep enough or sharp enough or are long enough to give him the traction he needs to take advantage of his speed. But it's almost like he can't run as fast as he wants because the turf won't let him. I'm really trying to say that when you run 10-3, you look different than 99.9% of every player you'll see in high school football. So that's what you're in store for.
A couple things jumped to my mind there. We used to have a receiver here named Philly Brown. Maybe we need to call Jir Brown Filet Brown. Don't know, but that was a good shot. And here's another thing that's important to remember about him. A lot of guys at this age are, especially with a track background, maybe a little bit thinner. This dude's going to be 200 pounds running routes, maybe even a little bit more, dare I say. I'm not saying Deebo Samuel size because he got too big, but This is not a slot scat back receiver. This is a guy who I think will be 6 foot, 6'1", maybe 205 pounds at some point. And just, man, when you talk about, this is a kid who, if he really wanted to train and run the 4x1, he'd be borderline Olympic level. That's what kind of speed we're talking about. This is a special athlete. I know sometimes we take for granted Ohio guys that commit, like really early in their career, and we kind of forget about him. This dude, if he was in North Dakota, would be the number one, although that doesn't count because competition level may be questioned. But you get my point. This is a real dude to watch. Mark, you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm not in on that Filet Brown. It kind of reminds me of when that one announcer was trying to get Maserati Marv to stick up. I mean,
it's not that one announcer, dude. It's Gus, but
that was like trying to make fetch happen or whatever that was at Clueless. I don't know if those are going to stick. And I know we're trying to get the new guy a nickname, but I got stuck with Grand Poobah. I will give it to you if you could trade me for one, because I know Grand Poobah's cool, but I just can't get the Barney Rubble, Fred Flintstone reference out of my head where I'm literally got nicknamed, Fred Flintstone. That's what I turned into. And I kind of look like Fred Flintstone, so it might hurt a little more.
You're more svelte than
so that there's the nicknames, I don't know. You try to get a good nickname and sometimes you hit on them, sometimes you don't.
Dave Biddle considers himself the nickname purveyor, and he's let us know that he's got one brewing for Garrick. So we'll all sit back and wait for that. Appreciate you guys stopping by. We've got a ton of stuff coming for you. So don't forget, you got all the stuff from the game, all those offensive line visitors and some interesting other guys. Mark and Garrick out on the road this weekend, and then tremendous stuff coming for you after that. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great weekend. Nutters.